afternoon, everybody. We're going to start the second section of the disaster management chapter. So, the contents of today's presentation is policy development in disaster management, measures to be observed by all persons in all kinds of emergency, personal protection in different types of emergencies, man-made disasters and prevention of man-made disasters, Government India and its major steps in disaster management, international agencies providing health humanitarian assistance. What is policy development? So, whenever any disaster strikes, we take an action to reduce the effects of it and rescue the people who are affected by this. So, policy development is nothing but it's a formal statement of the course of the action, whatever the steps we take to reduce the effects of disaster and disaster mitigation and everything. All this would, the formal statement would be including the policy development. So policy is always strategic in nature and it performs the following functions. First thing is it establishes the long-term goals and assigns responsibilities for achieving those goals and establish recommended work practice, how to follow whatever guidelines to follow during that work and everything, and determine criteria for decision making. So any definition making or everything is the criteria is all framed by this policy development. Definitely this policy development is the center assisted function. So it is always like a top down approach. So the national level at the central level, and then they would be sending the instructions to the state level. The state again would be forming their own functions, and again it would be sending them to the district level, to the municipality level, and then to the village or town level. So everything, it would be a top down approach. So the higher levels would be assisting the lower levels, but whatever the strategies is implied from the policy would be bottom up, like it would be going from downwards to upwards. So it again depends upon the type of disaster which has happened. Like if it has affected large areas from the central level to different states, or only very few areas are affected. So depending upon that, the policy makers, decision makers would be taking the necessary steps. So the form of emergency preparedness policy would be varying from country to country. Definitely, the developed countries will be having more sophisticated and more technologically advanced developments, whereas developing and less developed countries will be much more, they would be facing difficulty in this aspect. So mainly 6 sectors would be required for the response and recovery strategies in disaster management. First thing is the communication. The communication department is very important, and definitely police and security, they are very they play a pivotal role in making things all stable and protecting everybody in kinds of emergencies. And health, definitely health department is the need of the hour in any kind of disaster or emergencies. And search and rescue, social welfare and transport, especially during the shifting of the patients or shifting of those people who are vulnerable to the disaster to the temporary shelters and everything. So the transport is also important. So all the sectors would be having an intersectoral coordination in managing the disaster. So what kind of measures to follow in any kind of emergency by the general public? So we just see what are the measures. First thing is, do not use the telephone except to call for help. So it's good to leave the telephone lines free, so that the responses would be organized by the officials. And whatever messages which are released by the radio and media, everything, you have to be aware of whatever the messages is being passed by the government. So, and whether the what regarding the development of the disaster, like what measures to take, and what steps, whether the disaster is reduced or whether it has been affected the place where which we are residing. So everything. So we cannot know just sitting at home. So you should be able to communicate through this various media. and carry out the official instructions. Definitely um, when any kind of emergency strikes, the government usually releases certain instructions to the general public to follow. So either through radio or in loudspeaker locally. So you should be able to follow whatever the instructions is being given, and always prepare a family emergency kit. So emergency kit. So whatever things which we require, like medicines, or like for first aid medicines, or whatever. Certificates, important certificates, some money or whatever which is required if any kind of emergency strikes. So immediately what things which we have to take by hand, we cannot at that point of rush, we cannot just take everything which is available at home. But it's always good to keep a family emergency kit consisting of any eatables and all everything, so that it is helpful during that time. So in all kinds of emergency, it is better to be prepared than to get hurt, and also to get the information so as to get organized. Because without the information, we don't know what to do, how to react, and everything. So definitely, information is very essential at that point of time, and to wait rather than act too hastily. So it's always good to wait for the listen to the instructions given by the government and then act upon, instead of just taking our own decisions in times of emergencies. So we'll see different types of emergencies, and you may be getting a question like, what measures would you be taking in kind of when the earthquake strikes, or in case of floods, as a medical officer of a PHC, what counseling or what advice would be give you take, what measures will be taking in your particular locality. So all that kind of questions may be asked in your viva or in your university examination. So we'll just see some kind of emergencies, floods. So what to do beforehand? So all kinds of areas are not prone to floods, like low-lying areas and those staying near to rivers, dams, like that. So they are more prone. So the individuals which are living in that area should be knowing about what kind of risks they are liable to. So based upon the town planning, so they have to be aware of whatever the risks they are prone to. And small floods can be foreseen by watching the water level, especially after the heavy rains. You can see that the water levels in rivers and dams will be rising up. So usually the weather forecast or the media would be just giving the news bulletin regularly. So we have to keep an eye on it, so to prevent the effects. And forecasting of the floods or via tidal waves is difficult, but definitely hurricanes or cyclones are usually, they are warned before itself, because usually we can see that every year at some point of time the cyclones will be taking place. So when there is particular vigilance, we can just the weather forecasting department, everything, the Indian Meteorological Department, they would be continuously monitoring what any kind of cyclones or hurricanes are being formed, and they would be informing the public. So we have to know about that. And they're usually announced several hours or days before they arrive. So due to the advancement of the technologies using the space and all, radar technology and all, we are able to detect the cyclones and the storms and everything before itself. So during a flood, what to do during when the flood has already occurred? What should we do? It's always good to turn off the electricity and all the electrical appliances which are connected to boards, to remove of them, to reduce the risk of electrocution, because it may cause an explosion and even damage to the appliances. So protect people and property as soon as the flood begins. Take the vulnerable people, especially the old people, children, pregnant women. They are most vulnerable, so they need an help. So it's always good to ship them to upper floor, and whenever possible, move the personal belongings upstairs or go to raised shelters for using living. If they are living in low-lying areas, it's always good to ship them to high-lying the shelters or whatever is being provided by the government, like schools or whatever government offices. They would be taking charge for this purpose, especially. And also during floods, there is always chances of water contamination. The taps or whatever, they will be functioning, but still whatever the water we are getting from the taps, you should be checking the color, taste and the smell. If you find that it is contaminated, it's always better to purify and use it instead of just taking the water like that, because in times of floods there is always chances of contamination of water. And evacuate the danger zones whenever any these floods occur. The local authorities would be just prescribing certain zones as a high risk or danger zones. So it is always good to follow their instructions and evacuate immediately. Such families, whoever they are at risk, they would be provided with the emergency supplies and temporary shelters which the government has prepared. So what to do after a flood? After the flood has happened, what can we do? It is always good that we do not return. That is especially those people who have been shifted to the temporary shelters or any high places. They should not just go back to their homes like that, because the local authorities would be checking whether all the buildings are safe and all the water has been unlocked or not. So after that only you have to return to your house. And also it is essential that the water is declared safe for drinking, because untreated water, it causes gastroenteritis and other waterborne diseases. So, and also whatever the rooms or materials which are flooded, it's always good to wash or sterilize them. And also the utensils and dishes, whatever is present, it's good to boil them and use, because the whatever the flood water that is being into it, it again causes other GE and other diseases. So it's better to sterilize and wash them before use. And whatever the food or whatever canned food, water you have kept in the fridges and freezers, it's not good to consume them after some few, which you have left like that for days, because again you will be having the foodborne diseases and all if you consume such kind of food. So all the consumables which are present in the house, like drinks, medicines and cosmetics which are flooded with water, it's always good to discard them. And what to do in times of storms, hurricanes and tornadoes. So what to do beforehand? So same like before, we should be able to the people should be aware of what kind of storms they are liable to strike their region, so that they'll be taking certain risk reduction measures. So you have to choose a shelter priorly whenever you know that there is chance of storms or tornadoes being occurring. Tornadoes are usually seen in the developed countries. They have so many tornadoes have occurred in the previous years. So you have to choose a shelter in advance. Maybe it could be a cellar or basement or any alcove. Alcove means it's like a recess in the room or a wall. Like it's a closed shelter. So this would be a perfect suitable, so that you will not be direct risk with hurricanes or the winds and all strong winds. So you should choose a shelter before. And the trees, all this are very uh, they would be falling down and they would be hampering the transport and everything, or they may fall on anybody also. So whatever dead trees, the tree branches, it's always good to cut off them. And also to check the state of the roofs. If it's a pakka houses, it's okay, not a problem. But in case of kacha houses and those with what you say, certain metal roofs like that, they'll be there. So you have to check the state of them, whether it's good or not. And also the state of the ground and drainage around the houses, because so that there is deluging of the water and all. And it will not again cause the water level will not be rise. So that it always good to check the whether the maintenance of the drainage and everything is good or not in our localities beforehand itself, when you know that it's happening. So take measures against flooding and prepare a family emergency kit. So this is all about what to do before when any storm or hurricanes or tornadoes are expected to come. where during the emergency, what to do during that time. So you should be same, like you have to listen to the instructions given by the local authorities. It's better to stay indoors and not go in a car or boat outside, especially in the sea. The fisherman, they'll be giving prior signals itself, like fisherman should not go for fishing. So it's good to stay at home itself whenever the danger signals are announced by government. So evacuate houses if the authorities request, taking the family emergency package with you, and any kinds of objects which are liable to flown away by the wind, like any those present outside in your terrace or upper buildings. So it's always good that you tie them, and or keep any nail planks to the, and also put the nail planks to the doors and shutters, so that they may not be pulled off by the wind. So, and it's you need not shut all the doors and windows, but it's good that if you open the windows on opposite to the direction of the flow of the wind, so that by opening this, the wind pressure on the house will be reduced. So in this way you can prevent the effects of this high wind storms. And if you are outside and you're caught in a storm, it's always good that you just move into a shelter instead of just staying in the open place. But it's better not to stay under the trees. If there is no any other shelter, you can just lie flat in a ditch. When in case of thunderstorms, keep away from the doors, windows, and the electrical conductors. You should unplug all the electrical appliances in the house and all the television aerials and all. So don't use any kind of electrical appliances during the time of the storms and all, because any explosions like that can happen. And telephone also, it's better not to use during that time. So after the disaster, after storm, hurricane, or tornadoes, what should we do? We should follow the other instructions given by the authorities. And it's always good to stay indoors and not go to the affected areas, because any trees or any objects which are in that position, they may be falling on us. So it's not good that if it has stopped and you can just go out and roam, and give the alert as quickly as possible that you're safe, or if you have any problem, and give first aid to the injured. If you find any people injured in your house or anybody, keep the first aid kit ready and give the necessary treatment by the survivors. And make sure the water is again safe to drink, and check the contents of the refrigerators and freezers before consuming. And also check the exterior of the dwellings and call for assistance if there is risk of any falling objects like tiles or whatever present. So keep a look on the exteriors of your buildings, so that there is no risk again from the falling objects. So earthquakes, most of the earthquakes we cannot do anything beforehand, because we don't know this kinds of hurricanes, cyclones, or storms we can expect before because the meteorological department, with the help of satellites, can be we can forecast that it will happen, but earthquakes cannot be forecasted. Most of them occur suddenly. So, but here also there is another thing. So many earthquakes, whatever, if one episode has occurred, again several hours after, even after days, there will be again further tremors in that same locality. So though it is of less intensity compared to the first episode, but still the earthquakes would be followed. So to reduce the destructive effects, whenever after this first episode of earthquake has happened, so the buildings, whatever we build, should be according to the urban planning regulations. If the buildings are strong and good quality, usually there is no chance of collapse of the buildings. And especially in the risk areas, some certain Japan, you know that Japan is the most prone country for earthquakes. So whatever buildings they build in, so they are very high quality, so that they are not easily collapsed or destroyed during earthquakes. So like that. So in risk areas, it's always good that you build good quality houses, and the electrical and gas appliances in house all the pipes you should ensure that they are firmly fixed so that there will be no explosions like that. And this it's always good that you will not be storing the heavy objects and materials in high positions, because during time of earthquake they may be falling on the people who are staying there. So hold evacuation drills. This is not like not a regular activity, but in some areas there is there are regular earthquakes prone areas. So in such areas, it's good that if you practice the family evacuation, what to do, if simulation exercises. So when an earthquake happens, it will not happen, but it happens, what should you do? Everybody in the house should be knowing about what to do. So it's good that you can act immediately in times of that emergency. Um, so family emergency kit, it's always good and ready to keep it. During an earthquake, you should better to keep calm. Do not panic, because if you panic, you don't know what to act, what to do. There is no need to rush or do anything. So because it will be taking some time for all the process, the earthquake to happen. So people who are indoors should stay there. It's good if you are staying at downstairs and just immediately come out of the buildings to an open place. But if you are in some floor somewhere, it's good if you move to the central part of the building and keep away from the stairs, because stairs are the one which collapse suddenly. So better keep away from the stairs. And those who are outside, it's good if they stay outside itself, and stay away from the buildings and electrical cables. And if you're in a vehicle, in a car or anything, better to park it in somewhere away from the buildings and bridges especially. It's not good to stay on the bridges, because the bridges may also collapse. So after an earthquake, what to do? You have to obey the authorities' instructions, whatever they tell, whatever they tell, where you have to go, whatever, everything. The government would be taking immediate steps to uh, protect the victims. So do not go back to the damaged buildings, because the tremors may be occurring again and again at any moment. So it's better if you just stay away from the buildings and give a first aid to the injured people. Alert the emergency services if any fire or any pipes are burst. You just call the emergency services immediately. Do not just simply look at the stricken areas, because it's good if you help, or that unnecessarily it's not good if you go to the stricken areas and just hamper the rescue work. And keep the emergency packages in the radio near hand to listen to the instructions given by the government and act upon. And make sure the water or food which is served, which is present with you, whatever is consumable and not contaminated. So especially if you return back to the building after the earthquake, and just check whether it's good or not to consume them. So clouds of toxic fumes. These clouds of toxic fumes are released from chemical factories or any kinds of explosions like the nuclear explosions or whatever. So these are also actually difficult to interpret. We don't know when it will happen. So what to do beforehand. So it will not happen everywhere. Those people who are living close by to the chemical factories, like recent gas leak incident at Vizag. So they are the people who are residing in that risk area. So now all the residential areas have also moved close by to the industrial places. So all those people staying in that kind of risk-prone areas should know about the evacuation plans and facilities, like whatever anytime which it happens, what to do, how to act upon, and they have to be familiarized themselves when any alarm signals is given, any sound horn or any signals given by the government. They have to know that what, okay, this is an emergency and they have to act upon. So equip doors and windows with the tightest possible fastening, so that the gas or whatever is released is not entering the houses. And prepare the family emergency kits, as I already told. So these are very few things which we can do, those people who are staying nearby to the risky areas during the emergency. So like last the Vizag gas leak accident, it just left everybody unconscious. During that time, nobody can do anything. But if not that kind of case, if it is not unconscious, but you may be having some other symptoms like that, some other, you have known that an explosion has happened and you are prone to be exposed to that. So do not use the telephone. Leave lines free for rescue services. Listen to the messages which is given by the radio or other medium. Carry out the instructions which is transmitted by them. Close the doors and windows if you are staying in home. Stop up the air intake system. Air intake systems are, if you are in a car, the air intake system will, that is the, to start up the engine, we usually take the oxygen from the atmosphere for the combustion process. So that kind of air intake system we have to stop up so that the outside air will not come inside the car. And seal any cracks or gaps around the windows and doors which are present in our house too with adhesive tapes, so that the air will not be entering, the gases or whatever released will not be entering in. And always keep a reserve of water by filling bins or baths or everything. Always keep water to combat all the process. So turn off the, during the time it's good to turn off the ventilators or air conditioners, because the outside air would be again coming in, so it's not good during the that emergency time. So after an emergency, what to do? Comply with the authorities' instructions and do not go out until there is no longer a risk, until there is clear-cut instructions by the government that there is no problem. It's not. It's a good idea not to get out. Just keep the doors and windows closed and don't go out, and carry out necessary decontamination measures, whatever, if any, the toxic fumes have entered a house. So how to decontaminate? What can we do to decontaminate that? So whatever procedures, measures they have implied, so it's better that you follow them. So, what are the different man-made disasters? We have seen all kinds of natural disaster, that is, which has been all, which happens suddenly without any interference by humans. It's all like the act of God. But man-made disasters are where the humans are involved in this. So these are of three kinds: sudden disasters, insidious means, or gradual disasters, and wars and conflicts. These are the three varieties of it. Let's see what examples are there and how they have, man-made disasters have affected our country or around the world. So sudden disasters, the Bhopal gas tragedy, which we already discussed in our last class, which has happened on 3rd December 1984. So the chemical pesticide plant of Union Carbide in Bhopal has exploded and released the methyl isocyanate gas into the atmosphere. So this, due to the wind conditions during that happening and the atmospheric immersion, there is no warning to the public residing there and population, which they don't know, because it's the first of its kind which has happened. So people don't know what is happening, so they don't know how to respond also. So due to this, the impact has increased. So about 2 million people around that Bhopal, this Union Carbide pesticide plant, have been exposed to this gas, and about 3,000 people have died in this incident, and people are still suffering the adverse effects of the gas, because some of them are left paralyzed, some of them have been with so pregnant women exposed have been with they have been affected with the fetal anomalies, and also so many effects have happened because of this Bhopal gas study. So this is a sudden disaster. So it has been, it's not expected, or it's not like wantedly done, just because of the chemical plant, this tragedy has occurred. Another one is Chernobyl nuclear power station accident. So at the reactor 4 area in the Soviet Union, in 1986, that is 2 years after that Bhopal gas tragedy, this has occurred on April 26. So this is the largest nuclear power accident which has release of large tons of radioactive material So more than 7 million curies of iodine 131, cesium 134, 137, strontium 90. So these are the different nuclear radioactive material. These are the different isotopes. So this all are, we know that the nuclear, this radioactive substance is very, very harmful because they will be affecting the genomic material. So all through the northern hemisphere, this nuclear power accident has resulted a very great damage. So these are some of the pictures. First one is the Bhopal gas strategy. Bhopal gas tragedy, and this one is the Chernobyl power plant accident, which has caused in the reactor 4 accident. Next is the insidious disasters or gradual. So gradually, many during the nuclear weapons production or during the research laboratories, lots of this chemicals and radioactive materials are released into the air, water, and soil. So due to this pollution, not only the pollution, like it's a gradual process, like. It is affecting many lives of the people residing in and around that places. So the chemical plants which release their toxic byproducts after the in the industries and factories, the byproducts are directly released into the rivers and other water bodies. So this is again another example of this insidious disasters which has caused a lot of morbidity and mortality in such few places. And another effect which we are seeing since long is the greenhouse effect. So due to many harmful pollutants, the heat trapping gases in the atmosphere, which are released by the burning of the fossil fuels, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, whatever. So all these are released into the atmosphere, causing the depletion of the ozone layer. So this aerosolized CFCs, because of the more use of the air conditioners, refrigerators, the use has increased drastically due to increase in population and advancement or development or whatever. So all this, the greenhouse gas effect is another example of this insidious disasters. These are some of the pictures, like industrial plant, chemical factories releasing the pollutants, the greenhouse effect. This is the nuclear power plant where certain byproducts are released into the atmosphere. And third one is the wars and civil conflicts. So wars and civil conflicts, we know that here the main motive itself is destruction. Taking the human lives is the main motive of this. This is an entirely different category compared to the first two, because they are just made by humans, though they are made for production and all. That it's like an accident more of. But this third category is completely destruction of human lives and economy. So the latest example, we know that the twin buildings attack, the World Trade Center in New York, which happened, where about 6,000 people have lost their lives. So the terrorist attacks all would be coming under this category. And since World War II, after World War II, three has not happened, but still so many wars are happening. Like about 127 wars were happening all over the world, and about 21.8 million war-related deaths have occurred, where more than 50% were civilians. Civilians means they are not military personnel. That is, they are not the soldiers who have taken part in the war, but other general public, the general people who are residing there. They are more than 50% of them were attacked and they were dead in this wars and civil conflicts. So now the recent advances, so no, most of the airborne power, the aircrafts, they're doing bombarding, and the nuclear weapons, there are so many are advanced, where you can send so many very destruction items to the other countries where you want to cause destruction. So the food production or supply routes, and damaging the ecosystems, and all this what will happen in this wars and civil conflicts. So lost of the lot of this refugees would be fleeing away. That is, they will not be having their own identity. If children, they will be losing their parents. Parents may be losing their children. Everybody is like distracted. Like every lives are lost, like the livestock and every animals, human beings, everybody. They're just, the lives are disrupted. They will not be having any identity and all. They'll be just fleeing away. They'll be going to some other places. So some famous, like this Korean, North Korea and Syria attacks. So all these are examples of the civil conflicts. So most of the civilians who just migrate from that places, they will be again having a lot of famines, war-related famines and all. They'll be facing the after effects even if they survive the wars also. And in most of the cases, the wars here, the main motive would be gaining of the land assets to gaining of the land, like every the previously the kingdoms used to be there. The kings used to take the certain places, so for that the wars would be happening. So like this here also, the land assets and independence. So some of these are the reasons where most of the wars would be happening. And some power conflicts are like within the nation. It's not like one nation to another nation. It is within nation itself. Some power conflicts take place due to religious or any other causes. So that has been increased wisely in this 20th century, and this is a major form of warfare compared to one country to another country. Even now we are Indo-China also, so many war has been happening. War means it's not destruction, some things. Many of the soldiers are dying because of the mutual attacks on each other. So these are some of the examples of wars and conflicts. So this is the last picture which went viral about this Syrian girl, when she was like, she was smiling, she doesn't know anything. When she was asked about where is your father, she was just replying very innocently, like he died. Like she just turned crying. So that video went very viral. I think many of you have watched it also. So so many people are affected by this wars and conflicts. So how can you prevent this man-made disasters? So the third thing we cannot prevent because it's completely motivated to destruction. But the first two we can prevent, because if you're following certain guidelines, the factories and everything, if it is built properly, we can prevent that. First thing is primary prevention. So not only the consequences but also the occurrences of the fires, explosions, crashes, or whatever the chemical and radiation exposures. So we can prevent that by taking certain measures. The tighter regulations of the chemical plants and other hazardous facilities, and insistence that the chemical plants should be built away from the dense populace. So actually all the chemical factories should be built away from the residential areas. And appropriate engineering and technological measures. Whenever the industries are built itself, at the time only you have to see that everything is the building codes, the designs, and the toxic materials, if anything being used, all the containment should happen properly. So at the time of building itself, you have to see that all the this disaster reduction measures are taken place. And early warning if possible. If possible, if you know that, if you know beforehand that some kind of accident is going to take place, if anything goes wrong, it's good if you alert the people around them, so that they'll be going away, they will not be affected with the explosion or whatever. And protection against human errors, definitely the human errors should be protected. The personnel working in the industry should be well trained on how to do that, so that the explosions will not happen. During half of the first half of the 20th century, two world wars and many regional conflicts. These are the things which happened, so that the government has got the experience how to develop the civil defense programs, and they were reshaped because now the nuclear weapons and massive air attacks are also happening with little warning. So they have reshaped like how the civil defense programs can be uh, created by the each country will be having their own specific civil defense programs. So they how to combat all this. So they will be preparing it. And weapons of mass destruction are indiscriminate, killing and injuring civilians as well as military personnel and destroying and contaminating the ecosystem as well. So the nuclear weapons, which are especially created itself to kill people and destroy the ecosystem. So they are. It's good if all the wars and use of the indiscriminate use of these weapons is reduced, and it's good that the arms race, the supply of this arms race, the people take necessary steps to prevent the nuclear wars. Government of India, our Indian government, they have, what measures they have taken in this disaster management. So, especially in the federal structure of India, the state governments, each state is responsible, government is responsible for their own relief work in natural disasters. Definitely, the government of India will be playing a supportive role in terms of supplementation of final resources to the states. They will be providing financial or essential commodities or whatever necessary. From central level, the assistance will be received, and administration has been developed to combat and minimize the adverse impact of this natural disasters. At the central level, the Ministry of Agriculture is responsible for this, because the natural disasters all would be under the whenever anything such happens. So all the coordination of activities will be conducted by the Ministry of Agriculture. Whereas since health is also an important part of this disaster management, so under the Director General of Health Services, under the Minister of Health and Family Welfare, there is a special wing for maintaining all these activities related to health. The Emergency Medical Relief Wing is responsible for coordinating all the activities in disaster management. So in vast country like India, government itself taking steps, it's not possible. Definitely the NGOs also should take part in combating this. The public education and community involvement is equally important. And as part of International Decade for National Disaster Reduction Activities, every year the second Wednesday of October is designated as World Disaster Reduction Day, where on that day, the public education and certain themes will be selected, and the public will be educated regarding this, and they will be reviewing on what happened, what the government is taking steps, and what further they can develop themselves to combat the disasters prone to them. So IMD, Indian Meteorological Department. This has 5 centers in Kolkata, Bhubaneswar, Visakhapatnam, Chennai, and Mumbai. So all the cyclonic storms uh, can be forecasted priorly with this. This department has been very helpful in doing that. And the satellite imaginary facilities and the cyclone warning radars, which are provided to various cyclonic warning centers, they are doing an excellent work, because for especially the ships which go sailing in sea, whether the navy ships or fishing ships. So warnings are issued 6 times per day, so that if any kind of risk or danger, they will be immediately sending signals so that they can return back to the shore. And there are 31 special observation posts set up along the east coast of India, especially for this purpose. And not only this, the INSAT disaster warning system receivers has been installed primarily in the coastal areas of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. So this is providing a very reliable form of communication system, so that we can act upon priorly. And this avalanche means, I told you in the last class, where the masses of snow will be falling from the snow mountains like that. So there has been in Manali, it's present in our country, the snow and avalanche study establishment. So this issues the people who are residing nearby 24 to 48 hours beforehand. We can know that any avalanches can take place, so that they can be evacuated from their places. So these are the cyclone disaster warning systems, like how it's happening. Earth station will be having, like we'll be connected to the satellites, and it will be having an overview of all the earth and it will be sending the predictions to us if any cyclones and hurricanes will be happening. And this is the Snow and Avalanche Study Establishment Center at Manali. So international agencies providing the health humanitarian assistance. So definitely the international different organizations at the international level are providing humanitarian relief during the disasters. So every country can be a potential source of health humanitarian assistance for some other disaster stricken nation. So when one country is in need of help, so other developed or even developing countries, they will be providing assistance to show their brotherhood or neighborhood. All this they will be providing assistance to them. So bilateral assistance, either it could be financial assistance or supply of personnel, like any medical personnel like doctors, nurses. If the necessities there, they'll be sending their own personnel for their help, and any essential commodities if required. So any kind of external aid will be provided by these agencies outside when the other country is affected. So several international or regional agencies have established special funds, procedures and offices to provide this humanitarian assistance specifically. So United Nations has been very active in this. Some of the agencies are United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, WHO, UNICEF, FAO, World Food Program. All these are very active in this, which provide the humanitarian assistance in terms of disaster. And even not only the international agencies, the intergovernmental organization like European Community Humanitarian Office, Organization of American States, Center of Coordination for Prevention of Natural Disasters in Central America, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Response Agency. So different countries, they have set up certain organizations for this purpose, so that the intergovernment, so they can provide assistance to each other. And not only this government purpose, the non-governmental organizations like CARE, Red Cross Society, and this International Council of Voluntary Agents, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, all these are very active in when any disaster happens, they will be supplying the doctors or any military personnel or the cops or security or whatever commodities required, they will be providing them. So this is all about the different international agencies which provide the health humanitarian assistance. So disaster is a very important topic, because the management of disasters need of the heart, because it happens suddenly and we don't know what to do. So what are the steps taken? Definitely the preparedness and mitigation is very important in disaster management. And equally important is whenever the disaster happens, how to respond to the situation and what measures to take so that we can reduce the risk of it and after effects of this disaster. So please have a reading of the chapter of the disaster management. Thank you.